Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching and listening to Historian Radio's Echoes of the News, and I am Muhammad Hussain Qazi, and these are today's headlines from the past. On this day, the 26th of November in 1832, John Mason introduced the first trams in New York, running the Prince Street and 14th Street route. A fascinating day in the history of metropolitan transport in the city of New York and in the world. Moving forward, on this day in 1922, Howard Carter was able to enter the tomb of Tutankhamun and examine the mummified remains of Tutankhamun, the ancient Egyptian emperor. Truly, this would be one of the most significant dates in the history of archaeology and Egyptology as a field. Continuing on this date, in 1942, the Soviet forces counterattacked at Stalingrad, ending the siege and forcing General von Paulus's Sixth Army to retreat. This day would have marked the turning of the tide in the favor of the Allies in the effort to win the Second World War. The Battle of Stalingrad, therefore, is remembered as one of the most significant battles in the history of the Second World War. And lastly, in 1966, on this day, the 26th of November 1966, President de Gaulle opened the world's first tidal power station in Brittany. This would be a significant moment in the history of eco-friendly power, where a power station would be opened to power electricity from water. This was a practice adopted by several countries by this point, which shows that the world in the 20th century had laid the groundworks for eco friendly energy production, and it would further it in this century. That is to say, in the 21st century, as a formal mainstream concept. Therefore, the implementation of a country like France, that is to say, France's implementation of a dam or a tidal power station to produce energy in Brittany would truly be a significant occasion. And on that note, we conclude today's headlines of the day. And now we move on to the next segment of our show, where we recount the famous births and deaths of famous figures from the 19th and 20th centuries and sometimes earlier. Born on this day in 1939, the 26th of November 1939, was Art Themin, English saxophonist and consultant orthopedic surgeon who performed with the early British blues players, including Alexis Corner, before moving on to play with the likes of Stan Tracy. Truly, he was a famous name in the history of jazz. And unfortunately, the field of jazz would mourn the death of Tommy Dorsey in 1956, on the 26th of November 1956 specifically, when he would have unfortunately choked to death in his sleep at the age of 51. Tommy Dorsey's band was one of the most iconic swing bands of the 1940s and 1930s, and is also a famous band because its singers included Frank Sinatra. So at one point, the band was also known as Tommy Dorsey and Frank Sinatra's band. And on that unfortunate note, we conclude today's headlines of the day. You are watching and listening to Historian Radio's Echoes of the News, and I am Muhammad Hussain Qazi, and these are today's headlines as history first heard them. Good night.